Which shoe is better to hoop in, the Adidas Dame 8 or the Nike LeBron 19? Today we're putting the newest models from Damian Lillard and LeBron James' signature shoe lines head to head to see how they compare. So really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. But quickly checking out the box and the price, you're going to get like a boxing theme for this Dame 8 box, which is pretty clean. And that boxing design is going to make its way onto the shoes too. And then for the LeBron 19s, these have a lot of details going on within this black design for the shoe box as well. I also like how Nike made that LJ logo see-through. That was a pretty nice touch. But, as for pricing, we're looking at a pretty big gap between the Dame 8s, which are going to retail for only $120. That is still going to be a $10 price increase, but, it's definitely not bad whenever you're going to be putting them up against something like the LeBron 19s, which are going to retail for $200 even. So you can't really compare these shoes whenever you can, pretty much get two Dames for the price of one LeBron.
I came back now, getting on his guap, I don't think I better pass now. Paper so long.
So taking a look at the appearance for these models and starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Adidas Dame 8 Dame Time versus the Nike LeBron 19 sweatsuit. So checking out the Dame 8s first, the thing that comes to mind with me whenever I look at these shoes, for some reason, is just how close the color blocking kind of matches the Jordan Zion 1. You can see like that break from the front to the back where you have that purple line in there for the Dames. And then on Zion's first signature shoe, he has the same idea with that Z in there to break up the design. So, back to this colorway though, the boxing theme does show up on a few places within this Dame 8. Like you're going to see it on that pull tab. And then Dame uses like boxing to kind of keep his mind right, just to like stay prepared. I'm sure it probably helps with conditioning and stuff like that too. But structurally, these Dame 8s do look pretty similar to the Dame 7, only they did take off that wing design that ran up the midsole and kind of traded it in for more of a curved look. And the last few models have kept a similar look, which is cool with me because, I've always kind of liked Damian's line. And, I'm curious to see if Adidas will do like that extended play thing for like these Dame 8s like they did on last year's Dame 7. I did like that. I thought that was pretty cool. But, just to throw in a few more pieces on these, you're going to get some Dame text on the inside of the upper, and then you're also going to have a patch on the back of the shoes around the heel. So, it is a nice looking shoe, but switching it over to the LeBron 19s now, there are some noticeable switches for this year's design from what they did on the LeBron 18 last year. So this, in my opinion, looks a little bit more like a LeBron shoe just after building them up higher than the 18s. You're also going to get a little bubble around the heel that's going to run around all the way to the back of the shoe. And then they kind of worked in LeBron's signature to that flywire cable that extends up from the midsole. I thought that was kind of a nice touch. Then Nike did take off all three air bubbles that ran up the tongue from last year's model. And I'm honestly glad they did that because I didn't really like the, how those felt to play in. So in general, I'm not big on the look for high top shoes, but I do think these came out pretty solid.
I came back now, getting on his guap, I don't think I better pass now.
So now looking at the performance side for these shoes and starting off with the cushioning, the Dame 8s feature a dual density Bounce Pro cushioning setup that's designed to give you the perfect ratio of energy return, cushioning, and support. And although I haven't played in these, a ton yet, they still have felt good to play in up until this point. I know that last year's model had a light strike cushioning setup that, did have some similar playing feel compared to these Dame 8s, which is good because I do like both models. And the cushioning overall is just well balanced on this shoe. But looking at the LeBron 19s, cushioning is going to be the highlight for this shoe, just like it has been on his line for a while now. These have a Cushlon foam midsole that is meant to be softer and more responsive than Phylon. And like I just said, you can tell that cushioning is definitely key whenever Nike was creating this shoe. You're going to get a Zoom Air unit in the forefoot that's also paired with some thicker Max Air units that are visible through the backside of the shoe. So, just a lot of cushioning features packed into the LeBron 19. You can really see them at work whenever you apply some pressure to this design. And, all of this cushioning does lead to the impact protection being really nice. So keeping a soft and comfortable feel has been a focal point for LeBron's line now for a while. But, the Dame 8s don't lack in this category either.
I came back now, getting on his guap, I don't think I better pass now. Paper so long.
So looking at the materials and the support, you're going to get a little less stuff going into these Dame 8s. I'm sure that most of that is thanks to the lower retail price, just having like less money to work with. But, these are going to get some textiles covering the entire upper. You're also going to have some TPU overlays in a few different places on the design. And you have a little Achilles pillow that wasn't there on the Dame 7s. I barely even noticed it on these Dame 8s because it is pretty soft. And just overall, this shoe is going to be very breathable and pretty light to move around in. For support, even with there being nothing on this model necessarily to help with the support, the Dame 8s are going to have you covered. There is a little bit of an outrigger extending from the shoe, and the upper just doesn't move on any step backs or hard movements, so I definitely was happy about that. And for the LeBron 19s, this is probably where I'm most impressed with this year's model, just with all the improvements that they made. So the LeBron 18s had a knit upper that just really had almost no containment. I turned my ankle in those a few times just playing in that shoe, but Nike did a few things to combat that on this year's model. So first, you're going to have a full-length inner sleeve that kind of conforms to your foot, and this leads to a transparent flywire cable that the laces actually feed through to give you some added reinforcement just to secure your foot within the shoe. And I think that these shoes lacing higher gives your ankle a little more stability, or at the very least it does kind of feel like it. But similar to the Dame 8s, these are going to get a really small outrigger. It isn't super useful, but out of all the other features, they really do lead to the support getting a lot better. But this does come at a price, and along with that retail price being higher, it's also going to weigh a good amount more. So it's actually going to be around 596 grams for a size 10.5. So you're definitely looking at a heavier shoe, while the Dame 8s are going to weigh around 440 grams for the same size, which is going to make them significantly lighter to play in, and you definitely get that feeling just moving around for these models.
I came back now, getting all this guap, I don't think I better pass now. Paper so long.
Finishing off with traction, the Dame 8s follow the same structure from last year's Dame 7, just with a slightly different pattern. You're going to get some wavy lines instead of the jagged arrows. Then you're also going to have some indentions in that Dame 8 that weren't there on last year's model. And these don't have a sticky feel, but they still do have some grip. They did play well outdoors, just like the Dame 7, so that was no surprise there. And I have still only played in these a few times, so I'm trying to figure them out a little bit more. There's nothing about the grip that really stands out. It's pretty average overall, but switching it over to the LeBron 19s, traction hasn't really been impressing me on his shoes for at least the last few models, and these are about the same. They are going to get a new pattern that is meant to resemble the LJ Crown logo, kind of condensed down, and it's not bad to play in, but it's definitely not going to be a sticky feel. I have noticed some slipping, so I would say that there's still a little work to be done in getting this category figured out. But to finish off with sizing, the Dame 8s run a little bit big, I've noticed, just at least for the length. The width is fine, but I have had a little bit more room in my toes than usual. For the LeBron 19s, I would maybe go a half size up because this is somewhat on the narrow side, but you have to remember whenever you're talking about taking a heavy shoe and going a half size up, you are going to be adding a little weight.
You can't play a player, baby, that's just how the game goes.
So for the final ratings, and starting off with the appearance, like I said in the beginning, I don't really love high top shoes, and even with this being one of the pairs I do like a little bit more, I just think that Dame's line has looked really good over these past few models. I've liked their setup, so I'm going to go with the Dame 8s here. For cushioning, the Dame 8s did get a little bit softer from the 7s, but it still just isn't enough to reach the LeBron 19s. They just have a lot more cushioning features kind of packed into this design, so they are going to take this section. For materials, it's just not really a fair fight here. I mean, the higher retail price does reflect like all of the flywire cables, the inner sleeve, just like the stuff within this LeBron 19 design. So I will stay within LeBron's line here. And then I kind of have to do the same thing whenever it comes to support, because they do have some pieces on here geared specifically for support, while Dame 8s just don't. But it's kind of more of a tie because they both have you covered for support. There's just nothing really on here to kind of show that. But to finish off with traction, I still don't love LeBron 19s, just what they're working with. It's more inconsistent than the Dame 8s, just from what I've noticed so far. So, for this comparison, they can kind of fall either way. But for me, I personally am going to go with the Dame 8s being the better shoe to hoop in. And a lot of this is going to depend on like your style of play and just how you like your shoes to feel. Being a guard, I prefer a lighter model to move around in. And the LeBron 19 just can't really deliver that, while the Dame 8 can. The support does play similar enough for me. And, just how I break this down in my head is like the Dame 8 plays really good, definitely good enough to make up for the $120 retail price. But, for $200, I would want a shoe with, virtually no flaws. And I think that the traction has lacked, a little too much in LeBron's line. They're a little bit heavy too. So that's kind of the reason I have to go choosing the Dame 8 instead. So if you're interested in buying one or both of these shoes and you want to support our channel, we do have an affiliate link in the description that gives us, a little commission that just goes back into reviewing more shoes. So feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.
You can't play a player, baby, that's just how the game goes. All I'm focused on is